Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Mondays. I'm Shannon Shy. I hope you had a great weekend. Alright, as promised, today's Motivation Monday video and next Monday's video will focus on the topic of fear. Fear that is helpful and fear that comes via OCD. Helpful fear and OCD fear. I could also call this rational fear versus irrational fear, which I think also helps us deal with phobias such as, for example, a fear of creepy, crawly things like spiders and snakes, a fear of flying on airplanes, and a fear of public speaking that lead to complete irrational and unproductive avoidance of the thing that we fear. As I said last Monday in introducing this two-part series, I'm not going to be giving you an academic-based scientific journey into fear. This will be a layman's tour of the subject, from my perch based on what I have learned through reading and experience, but mostly through experience. Hopefully, this little tour will make sense to you and give you some practical guidance and insight. When I was going through my own recovery, I had to come up with some bright line rules to guide me through the thin line between living ordinary life and dealing with OCD. My goal with this series is to help you differentiate between helpful fear and OCD fear, and to arm you with some tips about how to handle both kinds of fear. Why is this a motivational topic for Motivation Mondays? Because you can learn to look at fear as a good, helpful tool. You don't have to be paralyzed by fear. There is something you can do with fear. What is that? Step into it. Use helpful fear and call OCD's bluff on OCD fear. Now, before we begin, I want to let you know that I'm going to mention a few things that may be triggering for you. But that's okay. You can be triggered and still learn. You can let all of those thoughts that trigger you just be there and refuse to give OCD what it wants. It doesn't want you to hear what I'm going to say. That in and of itself is enough motivation for you to keep watching. As a starting point, I think we can all agree that we don't like being afraid. It's no fun to be afraid. It doesn't feel good. This ranges from simple nervousness and having metaphorical butterflies fluttering about in our stomachs to downright physical and mental paralysis, such as a feeling that we physically can't move and finding it difficult, almost impossible, to clearly process information and decide what to do next. As fear moves up the scale, our heart more intensively races and pounds like a drum inside our chest. Our stomach feels like it turns upside down. We get cold and hot flashes, and we just generally feel unpleasant. Why? Our brain senses or anticipates danger, something that could cause physical or emotional pain or discomfort, or adverse consequences. Oh no, this all sounds so horrible, right? Fear must be a bad thing, right? No, not if it is helpful or rational fear. When I use the term helpful fear or rational fear, I'm talking about things that you should fear, things that pose or could pose actual danger or harmful consequences to you or someone else. Things where you should heed the warning your brain is sending to you. Things that legitimately cause you to exercise prudence and protect yourself or others. Some obvious examples are someone threatening you or assaulting you, driving through a crime-ridden neighborhood, walking down a dark alley at 2 a.m., finding a venomous snake as you are removing boards in your backyard, a dog growling and baring its teeth at you, an abusive relationship, a slippery ledge at the edge of a steep cliff, a fishy financial transaction, finding an exposed hypodermic needle on the ground, an open bottle of bleach in the kids' playroom, etc. Or even things further down the scale, but still important, like failing an exam or failing out of school because we are not prepared. This list goes on because life is filled with hazards or adverse consequences. The danger or potential danger is clear and present, and we know it instinctively, whether we have OCD or do not have OCD. There is no doubt about whether it is an actual or potential danger. It's a fact, and we can't hide from that fact. We shouldn't hide from that fact. Why? Because helpful fear or rational fear prompts us to make prudent decisions to protect ourselves and others. Embrace it. Use it. How? Do whatever you need to do to protect yourself or whomever you are protecting. But what if it requires immediate action? What if I panic? Well, slow things down. Right there in your mind, slow them down. Try not to panic. Be present mentally. Step into the fear. Bottom line, be prepared. Take action, whatever the situation reasonably calls for. For example, avoid it, leave it, fight, run, secure the bleach bottle in a safe place away from the kids. Read the contract. Seek advice if time allows. Leave the relationship. Prepare for the test. Prepare to give the speech. Prepare to give the speech in front of the big audience. Take a first aid class. Take a self-defense class, and so on. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get your point, but Shannon, you're describing the same kind of fear I have with OCD. How do I know whether it's helpful fear or OCD fear? Or for that matter, just some fear related to a phobia? That's a good and insightful question. I understand exactly what you are asking and why you are asking it. So let's start with a baseline proposition. Helpful fear is productive because it protects us from actual danger. OCD fear is destructive and debilitating because it doesn't protect us at all. It only feeds the monster. What is the difference between the two, and how do I know the difference, you ask? Well, we create some personal rules to live by. When I went through my own recovery, as I mentioned before, I had to develop some basic rules for myself. I created rules because it helped me function in a world filled with doubt. Even ordinary, everyday activities became difficult to navigate. It's the same principle, this creating rules, as following any rule of any game you have ever played. You don't debate the rule, you just follow the rule, for example, like a batter in baseball who runs to first base after he hits the ball. He doesn't run to third base, even though that might make it easier to score when the next batter comes to the plate. Why does he run to first base? That's the rule. He doesn't even have to think about it. He runs to first base. My strategy involved 5 ground rules, one of which involved identifying OCD. Also, outside of my ground rules, I had to develop some other rules of thumb to help me navigate that fine line between living in the real world and dealing with OCD. That is where we will kick off next Monday in part 2 of the series. For now, I'll say try to pay attention to helpful fear that you know instinctively requires you to act. And if you suspect even slightly that OCD might possibly be the source of your fear, treat it as such. See you on Thursday for Great Thinkers Thursdays, and again right back here next Motivation Mondays. OCD can be defeated. I'm with you. Let's go.